Today we're diving into one of the most important and eye-opening works on history and economics. Slavery, Capitalism and the Industrial Revolution by Maxine Berg and Hudson. This book takes us behind the scenes of one of humanity's greatest turning points, the Industrial Revolution, and reveals the uncomfortable truth that slavery was not just a side note but a core driver of capitalism's rise. Berg and Hudson challenge the traditional, clean story of industrial progress by showing how the sweat, blood, and suffering of enslaved Africans were woven into the machinery of Britain's economic success. By the end of this summary, you'll see the Industrial Revolution not as an isolated miracle of genius and invention, but as a global system built on exploitation, trade, and human bondage. And trust me, the lessons here are as relevant to today's economy as they were in the 18th century. Let's break it down into powerful lessons. Lesson 1. Innovation was not enough. We love to celebrate British inventors, the steam engine, spinning jenny, and power loom. But innovation alone could not have powered the Industrial Revolution. The machines needed raw materials, and those came overwhelmingly from slave plantations. Cotton, sugar, tobacco, and indigo were the lifeblood of factories. Without slavery, those inventions might have remained idle or progressed much slower. Lesson 2. The slave trade fueled finance. Profits from the transatlantic slave trade didn't just enrich individual merchants, they built financial empires. Banks grew wealthy by financing voyages. Insurance companies thrived by covering cargoes of enslaved people. Ports like Liverpool and Bristol turned into booming hubs of capital. This capital flowed into factories, railways, and canals, fueling Britain's industrial leap. Slavery was not just a moral issue, it was the backbone of the financial system. Lesson 3. Cotton, the fabric of industry. Cotton became the face of industrialization, and enslaved Africans in the American South made it possible. British mills demanded mountains of cheap raw cotton, and plantations supplied it under horrific conditions. The boom in cheap cotton clothes democratized fashion in Britain, making textiles affordable to even the poor. But behind every cheap shirt was a whip, a chain, and a life stolen. Industrial progress was stitched together with human misery. Lesson 4. Sugar sweetened capitalism's rise. Sugar wasn't just a treat, it transformed Britain's consumer culture. Once a luxury, it became a staple in tea, coffee, and baked goods. The sugar trade linked working-class tea drinkers in Manchester to enslaved workers on Caribbean plantations. This new demand fed global trade networks, enriching shipowners, refiners, and merchants. What looked like harmless sweetness was actually one of the bitterest engines of industrial capitalism. Lesson 5. Slavery as a blueprint for discipline. Plantations were brutal laboratories of control. Enslaved workers endured strict supervision, timed tasks, and violent punishments. These systems of discipline didn't stay overseas. They influenced how factory owners managed workers in Britain. Long hours, harsh conditions, and rigid discipline became standard in industrial workplaces. The Industrial Revolution's labor discipline was a shadow of slavery's cruelty. Lesson 6. Global trade webs sustained growth. The Industrial Revolution was not purely made in Britain. It was woven into a web of triangular trade. Enslaved Africans shipped to the Americas, raw materials sent to Britain, and manufactured goods exported worldwide. Each link in this chain reinforced the others, creating a global economy of exploitation. Britain's industrial dominance was not national genius alone, it was global dependence. Lesson 7. The illusion of clean progress. Historians long told a sanitized story of the Industrial Revolution: heroic inventors, visionary entrepreneurs, and hard-working laborers. The role of slavery was minimized or erased entirely. Berg and Hudson argue this was deliberate, an attempt to protect Britain's national pride. But erasing the enslaved millions from history doesn't erase their contribution. It only blinds us to the truth. Lesson 8. Consumer demand was built on blood. Rising demand for goods, tea, sugar, cotton clothes, fueled industrial production. But this consumer revolution rested on enslaved labor. Working-class families in Britain unknowingly participated in a system that exploited millions overseas. Consumption didn't just drive industry, it justified slavery's expansion. What seemed like ordinary household choices were part of a global cycle of profit and pain. Lesson 9. Slavery and innovation reinforced each other. Factories made goods cheaper and faster, which expanded demand for plantation products. Plantations produced more raw materials, which fueled more industrial growth. This feedback loop tied slavery and industrial innovation together. Neither system could have grown as explosively without the other. Progress, then, wasn't separate from exploitation. It was deeply entwined with it. Lesson 10. Wealth was unevenly distributed. Britain grew richer, but the profits were not shared equally. Merchants, bankers, and industrialists amassed fortunes, while enslaved Africans suffered in bondage and British workers endured poverty wages. The Industrial Revolution widened gaps between rich and poor, white and black, free and enslaved. This inequality wasn't a bug in the system. It was built into its design. Lesson 11. Abolition didn't end exploitation. When slavery was abolished in the British Empire, it wasn't the enslaved who were compensated, it was the slave owners. Former enslavers received massive payouts for their loss of property, while freed Africans got nothing. Many of these compensation payments were reinvested into industry, banking, and real estate, fueling yet another round of capitalist expansion. Slavery's profits didn't vanish, they just changed form. Lesson 12. Capitalism's legacy still shapes us today. The legacy of slavery lives on in global inequalities. The wealth built on slavery set the foundation for modern Western prosperity, while former colonies were left in poverty. Racial injustice, systemic inequality, and even today's consumer culture trace back to slavery's shadow. Recognizing this legacy isn't about guilt. It's about understanding the economic DNA of our modern world. Lesson 13. History must be rewritten honestly. The final takeaway from Berg and Hudson is a call for honesty. We cannot celebrate industrial progress without acknowledging its hidden costs. True history must include both the inventors and the enslaved, the profits and the pain, the triumphs and the tragedies. Only then can we understand capitalism not as a clean story of growth, but as a messy tale of human exploitation and resilience. So there you have it, Slavery, Capitalism and the Industrial Revolution by Maxine Berg and Pat Hudson doesn't just retell history. It forces us to face the uncomfortable truth about how modern prosperity was built. It challenges the myths of progress and reminds us that behind every industrial triumph, there are stories of exploitation we can't afford to forget. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think history has downplayed the role of slavery in shaping the modern world? And what lessons do you think we should carry forward today? This is the summary shelf, where books become wisdom you can carry with you. If you found this breakdown powerful, check out more summaries on the channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because every week, we uncover the hidden stories behind the world's greatest books.